On September 11th, not only was the president out of touch, the White House was left unprotected. At 9:30 a.m., 2 more jet fighters took off from Langley Air Force Base near Washington. But due to mistaken communication, they were given a flight plan which took them east out over the ocean. They went almost 250 kilometers in the wrong direction. In the White House, Richard Clark was wondering why there were no jet fighters overhead.
We certainly asked right away for combat air patrol. I would guess that probably the Defense Department had already requested it. It seemed like it took forever.
Things were about to get worse. Shortly after 9 a.m., American Airlines realized that another of their planes, Flight 77, was probably hijacked. Again, relaying the news to the U.S. military would be delayed, this time by half an hour. Lieutenant Colonel Steve O'Brien of the Minnesota Air National Guard happened to be in the Washington area that day. He took off from Andrews Air Force Base at 9:30 in a C-130 cargo plane. Unaware of what was going on, he was pointing out the sights of the national capital to his crew. Then air traffic controllers asked him to look out for the American Airlines plane. In fact, the hijacked aircraft was about to collide with him.
At that time, we had been converging to the point where he had started to roll up into about a 45-degree bank turn and was almost filling up our entire windscreen. It was fairly close. I'd say, within a half mile or so. Then maybe 5-10 seconds later, they came back and asked us if we still had them in sight, and if we did, they'd like us to follow the aircraft. And that was strange because I've never, in 20-some years of flying, have I been asked to follow an aircraft, especially a commercial aircraft.
American Airlines Flight 77 would crash into the Pentagon at 9:37 a.m.
We saw the explosion, and I knew right away what had happened. The way it hit the Pentagon, it didn't look like it was an accident. I mean, most pilots, if they've got an emergency going on in their aircraft, they're going to do everything they can to avoid populated areas and certainly avoid, hitting a big building if they can.
After the Pentagon was hit, Richard Clark gave the order to evacuate the White House.
Evacuate the White House.
On a given day, there are probably a couple thousand people in that area. And we evacuated all of that very early on. Just told people to leave and get out of the city.
As almost everyone was rushing out of the White House, the president's senior advisor, Karen Hughes, was on the way in.
I walked in and there was no one there. Everyone that I'd seen had guns drawn, looking as if they were ready to, use them if need be, and so I didn't want to surprise anyone. I remember yelling, "Hello? Hello, is anyone here?" And 2 Secret Service agents ran around with their weapons drawn, ran into the foyer, and then they, once they realized it was me, took me to meet the Vice President.
After the Pentagon was hit, the Vice President had been taken to a bunker deep in the ground under the White House. He ordered emergency measures designed to ensure continuity of the U.S. government in the event of nuclear war. Around Washington, senior government officials were rushed off to bomb shelters and other secure locations in case more planes hit more key decision-making centers. At 9:42 a.m., the senior air traffic controller in the United States ordered that all planes land immediately at the nearest airport, a high-risk procedure that had never been attempted.
Someone did say, are you sure you want to do that? But at that point, I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I felt we had to do something to change the texture of the whole thing occurring, and at least this would separate the good guys from the bad, and what was left up there would have the military to deal with.
But the military had no plan to deal with the last hijacked flight on September 11th. United 93.